Here are your hosts, Kyle Fellows and Andrew Mertig. This is the Draft Fellows Podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome in. This is episode 19 of the Draft Fellows Podcast. I'm Andrew Mertig. I'm running this one solo without Kyle Fellows because I'm going to talk about an episode that he did alongside of a very special guest in just a moment. But make sure you're following the Draft Fellows Podcast on YouTube, or you can always check out the audio version on your favorite podcasting platform. And today, as previously mentioned, I will be reviewing the show that we had for episode 18, where Kyle was joined by Ian Cummings, a draft analyst from Pro Football Network. So this is the only time I will ever tell somebody not to watch me talk, but I would highly encourage that if you haven't seen that, go back. It's probably the best episode we've had. Ian Cummings is an absolute phenomenal leader in people, one of the most respected people across all of the draft community, and somebody, we're super privileged to have on early in our show's tenure, and somebody that I think really is able to speak intelligently of this upcoming draft class, had a ton of useful insights. But I'm just going to go over some of the top level highlights that I noticed when listening to that show. And so the first one was the quarterback conversation. So Kyle and I, when we started to break down what this 2025 quarterback class is going to look like, we sort of mentioned a bunch of names, but Ian had mentioned that he has Carson Beck as the only quarterback currently graded as a first round prospect in this upcoming class. He mentioned that Beck is on a similar playing field to JJ McCarthy from this previous draft class. So I think that is really fascinating. No, that doesn't mean that there's only going to be one quarterback picked in 2025 in the first round. Like, not at all. We know quarterbacks are going to climb. It's possible Beck doesn't have the kind of season we're anticipating and either goes a little bit later, or maybe, stays at Georgia for another year. It's possible that some of the other quarterbacks that we know about, like Shedeur Sanders or Drew Allar, or, a plethora of other players, climb up and surpass Beck during the year. It's possible that somebody that we're not even thinking of, that's not even on our radar, climbs up and does that. Kind of the Jaden Daniels or Joe Burrow treatment from previous years. So the quarterback one is really interesting to watch. We didn't necessarily know how great last year's quarterback class was going to be. We knew a lot of the names before, approximately this time last year, but we didn't necessarily think that we were going to have 6 first-round quarterbacks. So tons can change, but it was really interesting to see Ian, who has done his homework on all of these quarterback prospects, to say that Beck was clearly in front of the pack for this upcoming season. The other thing that I thought was really interesting, he had as running back 1 Boise State's Ashton Jeanty. And this is something that is maybe not controversial. It's not at all, but there sort of is a group of running backs that we see similarly across the draft community. So it was interesting to see Ian talk about Ashton's ability to be really well balanced, and that like sort of shorter, really dense kind of running back, and the moves that he has, the ability that he has as a pass catcher. And somebody that I think we should really be looking at when a lot of the attention is focused on those Ohio State running backs, the duo there, and in Henderson and Judkins. And I think Gene T is somebody to take a look at. And maybe there's no running back that climbs in the first round this year, but he could go very early on day 2 with a positive season. I think maybe the most fascinating part of the entire interview was that his wide receiver 1 was Travis Hunter out of Colorado. So this is going to be absolutely fascinating. I don't think we've seen a prospect like Hunter since probably Charles Woodson. Woodson was a two-way player, but not to the same extent that Hunter is. So this is truly something that, maybe we can't even make a football comparison to. Maybe this is a Shohei Ohtani situation. It's going to be really interesting. I think Ian's point that Hunter has better play strength as an offensive player than he does as a defender is fascinating. To me, if he is a truly special elite corner, that means a little bit more to me than a truly special elite wide receiver. I think whatever team drafts Travis Hunter is going to want him to do a little bit of the other side of the ball that they're going to target him for. So if he does play wide receiver, maybe there are some packages where, he can play some corner. I think being a part of the return game is going to be really important. I just don't know that you can ask a player in the NFL to try to have their body hold up on both sides of the ball in a very consistent manner. I think if he's a full-time corner, there's probably some packages where you get him the ball in space, maybe have him running some 9 routes, maybe even just like on a crucial drive, you're going to have him in a wide receiver full-time. I just don't think that any human being's body can hold up to that kind of physicality for an entire football game on both sides. But Ian is saying he thinks he's a little bit better as wide receiver. That to me was fascinating and something that I am going to be really locked into in watching Colorado this fall. I think having Colston Loveland, the tight end from Michigan, as a top 20 player early is really cool, because this is a guy that has a lot of the skills that we're looking for as an elite caliber tight end. He's a tremendous mover, great size, great athleticism, really good hands. It's just like, can he put it all together and really ascend into that category? We've seen tons of people do it. Sometimes the tight ends in a class kind of sneak up on you because this is a position that takes time to develop. But Loveland is somebody that has a leg up, and playing in a pro style offense at Michigan, I think could be a really fascinating prospect to watch. And then when you talked about offensive line, the thing that stuck out to me most, those 2 big LSU offensive tackles, Will Campbell on the left side, Emory Jones Jr. on the right side, and the way that he views them as the upper echelon of this tackle class. I think that is going to be really, really interesting to watch, because we know that these big, smooth movers are often going to, be identified early, and then some of them are going to excel as the season goes on and get picked really, really high in the draft, and some may take a little bit of a step back. And then, you have that conversation, at a later time. Tackles tend to go early if they're big and have great skill sets. So, we'll see how the LSU duo develops as the season goes on. But certainly, it's fun to watch that kind of tape where you can take a look at both tackles at the same time, and maybe save yourself a little bit of a crunch when you're trying to digest as much film as possible. But those were the immediate takeaways in listening to Kyle and Ian discuss some of the 2025 offensive prospects. So we'll have more on the defensive side of the ball as we get into next week. And so make sure that you are subscribed and you can check that out. But right now, we're gearing up for the actual NFL season. That is very exciting. But it is never too early to start talking about the draft for next year. And certainly these are just a few of the really exciting prospects that we have to look forward to in 2025. But I really appreciate you taking the time to check this out. Like I mentioned, if you haven't listened to the previous episode, that's episode 18, audio or video, please go back and check that out. Ian is phenomenal, and you can check him out on Twitter. You can also check out PFN Draft Podcast, and they just do really wonderful work. So if you're looking for an additional resource, check that out. And if you love the draft as much as we do, you wouldn't be watching this if you didn't. Then make sure that you go and give Ian a follow as well. Really appreciate you joining us. Make sure you like and subscribe to the show. We'll be covering more 2025 NFL draft over the coming weeks and the coming months, and really all of the next year. So from the draft room to the gridiron, Draft Fellows have got you covered. Until next time, stay tuned, stay in the game.